You know, it's kind of crazy to me that Xenoblade Chronicles is now a series. What was one game in Japan, which people thought would never be localized, to only being localized in Europe, to having used copies of the game being out there for $100. Oh god, don't remind me of that. Those are the dark ages. And now there are 4, well, I guess Monolith only considers 3 of them to be like actually Xenoblade games apparently. Xenoblade games, they exist. I never thought this game series would actually become a game series. I thought Xenoblade Chronicles is just going to be a one-off game. Why am I just being sentimental about this? I'm going to be talking about something really stupid about them. You know this. We go through this all the time. Oh, yeah, I guess this isn't a Pokemon video, huh? I guess weird how that works out, you know? I guess you could say that my shackles have been released. Okay, I've wanted to make that joke for so long, like you don't even know. Like as soon as I was going to make a non-Pokemon video, I knew I had to make that joke. I was even considering not using that joke in like a Xenoblade video because I didn't come up with a Xenoblade video idea at first. So look, let me have this one, okay? What's the main thing that's in every Xenoblade Chronicles game? Well, I'll tell you. These things. What are they? Well, I guess the game generalizes them as collectibles, so I guess that's what we're going to call them. Collectibles. These weird glowy orbs, well, I guess in the other games they're not glowy orbs because they decided to actually give them proper models instead of whatever the fuck this is. You collect them, you do stuff with them, and today we're going to talk about every version of collectibles and what you can do with them throughout the series. We're going to be talking about how to attain collectibles and what basically you can do with them. Well, I say basically, but you know what? We're just talking about the Collectopaedia as well. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I was going to just make a Collectopaedia video, but I felt like these two were so intertwined with each other that I might as well just make a video about both. So we're going to start from Xenoblade 1 and work our way all the way to Xenoblade 3. And yes, we're going to be talking about Xenoblade X, because that is a video game that exists, even though Monolith Soft pretends it doesn't. Also, I'm not going to be talking about any other Xeno game, because the collectible stuff isn't in other Xeno games, and they might as well just be other franchises at this point. Yeah, I know, a lot of people group these games together, and for good reason too. They're made by the same people, for the most part, and they do have some themes that are kind of relevant throughout all the games. But for my video here, Xenoblade games only. It's got the word Xeno and Blade in it, and I guess I can talk about it. No Saga, no Gears. I don't even know what the fuck a gear is. See, that's the point. I haven't played some gear shit. Please don't kill me. I'm also going to be refraining from talking about anything that could be spoiler related to any of these games. So yeah, let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Xenoblade 1 was the first game in the series to have collectibles. It's also the first game in the series. I mean, I would hope so because it's called Xenoblade 1. Well, it's technically not called Xenoblade 1, but it's the first game in the series, so you get what I mean. While you're exploring Xenoblade 1, you'll see these blue orbs everywhere. Yeah, these weird spirit-like things. Well, they look kind of spirit-like to me. These are collectibles. When you see a collectible in the real world, all you have to do to collect it is actually just go near it and you automatically pick it up. You don't even need to walk on top of it. These things have a very generous hitbox, so if you get remotely close to them, you'll probably just pick it up without even realizing it. It's pretty convenient. Every area in Xenoblade 1 has its own exclusive set of collectibles that are only available in that area. So, for example, Colony 9 will have a different set of collectibles than Garu Plains. For the most part, when you pick up a collectible, it's a random item that can appear in that map. In some areas of the map, you'll get a higher chance of getting a certain type of collectible, but it's usually all random. But that's the main way of how you obtain collectibles in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Another way you can do it in 1 in particular is actually trading items with NPCs. If you go up to an NPC and press the Y button, you can initiate a trade with them. Only named NPCs can be traded with, by the way, so if they don't have a name, well, you're out of luck. NPCs can trade you a variety of different items. And sometimes some of those items can be collectibles. Sometimes these collectibles are really rare, sometimes they're very common, and sometimes some of the collectibles are from different areas entirely. Or sometimes they'll have collectibles that only NPCs will have. Some of the rarest collectibles actually are the ones that NPCs can give you themselves. There's only a handful of them in the game, but you can only really get these if you have high affinity with that area. For the most part, collectibles are used to complete quests, but they also have some other uses. One of their other uses is that you can pair 2 party members together and you can give one of those party members the collectible. This will increase the affinity between these 2 party members. This is actually really nice to do if you're trying to get some affinity up for some party members, which affinity can be used for a lot of different things, but this is an affinity video. We're just talking about the glowy orbs. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the main thing you do with collectibles. That's right, the Collectopaedia. This little checklist thingy. Every time you go to a new area, you have a new Collectopaedia page you gotta fill out. Each page of the Collectopaedia has its own category for different items you can collect in that area. If you fill a row of that category, you'll get an item. Usually it's a weapon, sometimes it's a gem, it's one of the two. If you complete a whole page of the Collectopaedia, you'll usually get a rare weapon or gem that you can't usually get at that point in the game, or at all. So there's a lot of incentive just to walk around and collect these little orb things because you might get something that's really useful for that point in the game. I also like that in the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, they stylized the Collectopaedia as like its own little book there. I thought that was a cute little touch. Xenoblade 1 would set the groundwork for what collectibles are going to be for the rest of the series. They're little orbs of the overworld which will make you walk in a different path occasionally because you want to go pick them up because they're cool. They're neat little objects. And there's pretty good rewards for them and they're always useful to collect them. Also, sometimes you'll get a jump scare when you collect one because it'll show you a future vision of what you'll need for a side quest. That's always fun. But that's basically it for Xenoblade 1's collectibles. Now to Xenoblade Chronicles X. Does anybody even remember Xenoblade X? I mean, Sir Monolith doesn't, but I mean, like, does the average Xenoblade fan know this game exists? I mean, to a degree, it's on Wii U, so it's not getting ported, and it's not, like, the best Xenoblade game. I'd argue it's the worst, but you know what, that's just me, and that's for another video. We're not gonna get into that now, or else I'd be here all day, baby. It'll always be weird to me that at one point, this is the only other Xenoblade game we had, and it was so jarringly different from Xenoblade 1. So, let's talk about those collectibles, you know, like, these little orties. Well, I guess in this game they're not really orbs, they're more like diamond shaped. They don't look like the souls of the damned like they do in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Now they kind of look like the mother crystal from Final Fantasy XIV. Either way, these things are everywhere. In Xenoblade Chronicles 1, sometimes you'll actually have a big gap before you find your next collectible. You might not see another collectible for a long while. In X, that's probably not going to be the case because the world is that much bigger and there's a lot more collectibles just scattered about. So many collectibles actually spawn at once that not all their models will spawn in. Because of this, to let you know that there is a collectible in the distance, they have a little icon for that, which is actually really handy. It also probably helps the game load, and God, does this game need it. I've installed everything I can to this game to make it load faster, and it still takes a while to load. This thing is pushing the Wii U to its limit, and it's both funny and sad to see at the same time. Also, collectibles scale to your size, so if you're in your scale, they're going to become bigger. Because of this, you'll be able to easily collect more than one collectible at once while you're in your scale as opposed to being a human. Not that you can't collect multiple collectibles on foot, but it's just way easier to do it with the scale because you have a way bigger hitbox. One of the new mechanics of the collectibles is that some will actually only spawn in certain sections of the map. Xenoblade 1 had a higher chance of collectibles spawning in certain places in the map, but it was never to the point where any area in Xenoblade 1 had it so you had to go to a different section of the map to find a certain collectible. That is the case here in Xenoblade X, but Xenoblade X only has 5 main areas as opposed to Xenoblade 1, which had over 20. Also, X's maps are so huge, of course they would want you to explore them. It would be kind of stupid if you just could run around the entrances of these areas and just get all the collectibles from just walking in circles, as opposed to actually exploring the map. Also, another new thing that Xenoblade X added with collectibles is that if you reach a max stack in your inventory of a certain collectible, instead of giving you more of that collectible because your inventory is full, the game will just automatically sell it for money. The collectibles don't sell for much, but at least they add up over time. And in some areas, they're really good for farming for money. And you're gonna need that money because holy shit, sales go for a lot. Like, why? Just like with Xenoblade 1, Xenoblade X also has a Collectopaedia, and this one is way bigger per area. There's only 5 Collectopaedia pages this time around, but they're huge. Each area has 10 different categories of collectibles that you can collect for it. Filling in a space normally like in Xenoblade 1 doesn't do anything, but there are some spaces where if you do fill them in, you get battle points. These spaces are called lucky panels. You can tell if a space is a lucky panel if it has a star in the upper left corner of it. You'll also get battle points for completing an entire row of a certain category for a certain area, or you'll get it for completing all the categories in an area. Also, if you're wondering, battle points are there to upgrade your arts and reduce their cooldowns and make them more powerful in general. So honestly, in some ways, completing the Collectopaedia in this game as opposed to 1 seems a little bit more worthwhile because you're getting something that upgrades skills you're always going to be using as opposed to equipment that might be outdated by the time you complete the Collectopaedia, even if it is unique. Battle points aren't the only things you can get by filling out the Collectopaedia. You can also get probes, which are used for mining. Honestly, it's been so long since I played X, I don't remember anything about mining. Like, it gathers materials for you, I think? I don't fucking know, man. Also, sometimes you'll get figurines which you can display in your barracks. They're not super interesting, they're kind of just there. I think out of all the rewards you get for filling out the Collectopaedia, Collectopaedia, these figurines are probably the worst. Honestly, in my opinion, if you really want like some barracks related rewards, just give us furniture or some kind of customization. I'm not asking for full-on Animal Crossing here. I'm just asking for something that's a little bit more than just, I don't know, 4 figurines on display, which are really just not that worth looking at. Alright, and that's all the worthwhile things I can talk about when it comes to Xenoblade X's collectibles. Now on to Xenoblade 2, the sequel, the Xenoblade 1, and X doesn't exist again. Okay, but seriously, Xenoblade X is a pretty bad game, and one day I will Xenoblade 2 was a return to form, and it felt way more like 1 than X did. Yeah, sure, 2 has its own weird things going for it, like the gacha system, the amount of titties I will see in this game, and most importantly for the context of this video, whatever the fuck they did to the collectibles, because, why? What? Hello? Remember how I talked about it was really cool to wander around these maps and you would be rewarded for it by finding collectibles? Yeah, it's gone in 2. I'm not too sure how to feel about these gathering points. On one hand, if you're looking for a certain type of collectible, or you know a collectible will spawn at one of these that you're looking for, you can easily just find the collection point on your map and then there you go. You don't have to wander around the map aimlessly to get collectibles if you don't want to. Yeah, sure, it's nice to do that while you're in the overworld just kind of mindlessly exploring, but if you're just trying to farm out a certain item, that can get really annoying real fast. But that comes at the cost of having none of these collectibles in the overworld in general, just only in these little gathering points on the map. I guess at that point it comes down to preference. What do you want more? In my opinion, I kind of wish we just could have both. Like, you'd still find collectibles on the overworld to the path to your destination, so you can just kind of pick them up for the hell of it, but if you really need to farm out a certain collectible, you can still have the collection points for that purpose, and also it'd feel way more worth it to find collection points because you wouldn't have to wander around the map to find one item. But hey, that's just my thoughts on this whole thing. I guess you can argue that you could solve the farming issue by having tradable NPCs like Xenoblade 1 did, but Xenoblade 1 made it so you have to have really high affinity to actually get most of the items anyways, plus some collectibles can't be traded for in the first place. Besides, I'd rather go to a collection point than just to track down that one NPC that has that one collectible I'm looking for. But you know what, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's actually talk about what the collection points do. Throughout all of Allrest, you'll see these little shovel icons which you can interact with. When you interact with them, a bunch of collectibles will come out of that spot in particular, and that's how you collect collectibles in this game. How many collectibles you get from a collection spot does vary, but having field skills will really help you get more. Field skills can only activate depending on what that collection point can yield for you. An example of this being is if you went to a collection point that can give you flowers, Drillmark's Botany can activate and give you more flowers. For each type of collectible, there's a field skill that corresponds with it, increasing the chances of finding that type of collectible. It all depends on the field skill and what material it'll increase the chance of you finding. This also depends on the field skill's level. If you have a higher level, that means you'll get more of that certain type of collectible from that collection point. Plus, the higher level means that the field skill will activate more often. And on top of that, the higher the level, the higher the chance you're going to get rare materials out of that collection point. If it's at level 3, you'll always get the highest amount and it will always activate. Also, disclaimer, when I say always activate, it will always activate if you can get that type of collectible from that collection point. If not, then it won't activate at all. Also, multiple field skills can activate at once when you're interacting with a collection point. If this happens, the effect actually stacks per field skill. For the first time in the series, Xenoblade 2's collectibles actually have proper models of what they're supposed to basically be. Because of this, before you pick up a collectible, it's no longer ambiguous what kind of collectible it's gonna be before you pick it up, which is really nice. Also, now collectibles will have a color associated with their rarity. Dark blue is the most common, pink is rare, and then gold is the rarest of them all. Even if you're not paying attention, you'll still be able to tell from a glance if you've got a rare collectible for a collection point or not. This is because the lines that appear when you collect a collectible will reflect the color of its rarity when you pick it up. There's no Collectopaedia in this game, which at first seems really baffling, and then you realize how many collectibles you're going to need for a variety of different things. You can dump them into ox cores to make ox cores. There are some blades that will use collectibles for crafting, and there's a particular blade you can get by offering random collectibles to a certain altar in the game. So to some degree, I guess it makes sense why the Collectopaedia is not in the game, because they'd rather use it on other things and not hoard it for that. That's it when it comes to collectibles for Xenoblade 2, but Torna has some little things that I might as well mention because while it's mostly the same as the base game, there are a few differences. Now when you go up to a collection point, it'll tell you exactly what type of collectible you're going to get out of it. And the other new thing about Torna is that there are some collection points in the game that will give you a higher chance of getting rare collectibles. And with that, we're done talking about Xenoblade 2. And now onwards to the newest game of the series, Xenoblade 3. Xenoblade 3 brings back rated collectibles of the overworld. Thank fucking god. Not only did they do that, but now when you're aggroed by an enemy or you're in a battle, you can still pick collectibles up. It took them 4 games to implement this quality of life, but I'm very glad that they did. Outside of that, now your party members will verbally comment if you got a rare collectible or not. And as of right now, there's no way to turn that off, so if you get a rare collectible, you're gonna hear Lance tell you about it every time. All the time. They actually added one new way to get collectibles in this game. Sometimes, very rarely, you'll see an enemy with a red exclamation point above their head. If you wait around long enough, the enemy will do an animation that will drop a lot of collectibles. Honestly, this is actually one of my favorite new things that they added in Xenoblade 3. I think it adds a lot of personality to the enemies, and it just kind of makes the world feel a little bit more alive. It's neat. Also, there's no more collection points in the game. Well, kind of. There are fabricators now, which are basically collection points that you pay money for. Honestly, I prefer this because now when you're exploring on the overworld, you actually can find random items around, instead of going up to a collection point, pressing A, waiting for the collectibles to pop out, and then collecting them afterwards. I'm glad the fabricators are basically the collection points of this game, so if you still want to farm out a certain collectible, you're not just walking around the overworld aimlessly, just hoping you can find that collectible. So I guess you could say that this collectible system now is the best of both worlds. Anyways, there's a variety of crafting that the collectibles can be used for, like making gems and cooking. But making its grand return to Xenoblade 3 is the Collectopaedia, kind of. I say kind of because this version of the Collectopaedia is way different than the other two. One of the weird things about it is that this is the first Collectopaedia that's actually acknowledged by the story itself. A character is actually saying Collectopaedia out loud, which is the weirdest thing to hear. But the other main weird thing about the Collectopaedia this time around is that it's actually not for full areas, it's just for certain people. So you actually find it in the quest menu now. Each named NPC in Xenoblade 3 has their own Collectopaedia for them. So now named NPCs will give you a list of collectibles and materials you need, you bring it to them, and then you complete the Collectopaedia page for them. This is the first time the Collectopaedia actually takes materials, which are basically enemy drops, as well as collectibles. Also, Collectopaedia pages in this game are actually infinitely repeatable. As long as you have the items required for the page, then you can complete it again and again and again, until you obviously run out of those items. A new thing that they added to Xenoblade 3 is that now if you're trying to complete a Collectopaedia page and you don't have the right collectibles or you don't have enough of the certain amount of collectibles or materials, if so, then you redeem a Napa coin and that will complete the Collectopaedia page for you. The farther you get in the game, the more Collectopedias of individual NPCs you'll have, and it kind of makes me realize how weird these NPC names are. Sure, there's some normal sounding names like Triss and Lenny, there's also some weird ones like Lori and Foots. Foots. Why is this name Foots? Oh, look, there's another weird one here. How do you pronounce this one? Is it the Agu?
Actually, it's pronounced like...
Okay, I get it now. Thank you, helpful stranger. And with that, I've talked about every Xenoblade game's version of collectibles and their Collectopedias. Honestly, one of the more fun parts of exploring an area in Xenoblade Chronicles is actually going out your way to pick these things up. They feel really rewarding to pick up, but I'm very glad the reward isn't so big that if you miss out on a few, you aren't missing out on much. And with that, I finished my first non-Pokemon related video. Now, if I can only get the rest of my non-Pokemon related videos out of development hell, one day. One day. Until then, bye! Holy shit, it's finally Endslate time. I'm sorry this video took a while to come out. It was originally because I had 3 different videos planned. The first one had a lot of script writing to do and I just didn't end up finishing it, so I wanted to do a different video because of that. Then that video had some technical difficulties with it, and that's how this video came out to be. After this video comes out, there should be more frequent uploads, but this one did take a while, and I also did have a lot of things dealing in between this video as well, outside of like 2 other video ideas not really working out before this one. Thank you so much to the Agu who actually helped me get some footage for this video. It wasn't a lot, but I noticed that he was playing through Xenosaga 3 and I needed some Xenosaga footage, so I was like, hey, could you just get this for me? And there we go. Also, he made a cameo appearance because I thought it would be kind of funny. I also want to thank my friend Charmed who got some etc. DE footage for me that I kind of couldn't get on my own because I don't have a completed DE save file right now. So thanks for that, Charmed. And that's it for this Endslate. Thanks to anybody who decided to actually give this video a watch. It means a lot to me. It was a lot different than the other Pokemon videos, and I kind of do want to mix it up. Because if I just did Pokemon videos, I think I'd get tired of that real fast. And I say that the next video is most likely going to be a Pokemon video. There were a few Pokemon ideas that I actually thought would be kind of interesting to look into. One of them requires a lot more research than any other video I've done before, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to be doing in that one. This next one probably won't require as much research, but it would still be an interesting kind of deep dive video. But until then, I'll see you later. Bye!